Dear Implicit Revelations case study notes, this is the most incredible moment of my whole entire eternal existence. It is absolutely divinely miraculous beyond anything I can ever dream of or fathom or imagine. The past and the future exist as vibrational potentials through body-mind navigation, accessed through the infinite power of consciousness. Okay, so play with me here for a minute. The body-mind has information from every year of life that's organized in relation with different subconscious priorities, you might call it. There's the priority of physical well-being. There's a priority of emotional well-being. There's a priority of physical intimacy. And physical intimacy might be, during years of childhood, it might be, cuddling with a caregiver. And then as you get older, it might be more sexually oriented with self or other people, right? So it changes and evolves as the years go by and data is gathered from each year of life. And there's the priority of emotional intimacy. And again, the way that subconscious priority will exist in the body-mind will evolve over the years. And so emotional intimacy might begin during early childhood with parents, caregivers, and other associated people who are constant roles in the life of neurodevelopment. And then as you get older, emotional intimacy will be, more tuned inward than with caregivers, and then tuned outward with other people like peers, okay? And so there's all these different subconscious priorities, and you can call them roles of the neurobiological social engagement system, but they're just subconscious priorities regarding navigation, and because the body-mind is here to navigate our existence and regulate our existence. And so let's say there's data gathered from every year of life, okay? There's information gathered from age 1. Age 1. Most of that's implicit memory, so that nothing's being consciously processed yet. The first 18 months, only implicit memories are being created, so unconscious memories. And data's gathered from age 2, age 3, age 4, age 5, age 6. But during that time, the left brain is still developing, and the ability to store things in explicit autobiographical details is still evolving, and that's why it's pretty common for the first 6 years of life to not be quite as clearly consciously retrievable as later years. It's more implicitly processed. And then data is gathered from age 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and you're starting to become a beingness that has their own sense of self that is imprinted from experiences of social engagement externally, but also has its own unique energetic pattern. And then age 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, and then this sense of self shifts as experiences of social engagement externally mold attachment well-being and kind of create a sense of self that we could describe as the human identity or the human personality or the ego or the perception of the self in a finite form. And then that self goes on to have experiences, and then data is being gathered age 19, 20, 21, 22, and it goes on and on and on and on and on. And every year is gathering information from experience in relation with attachment well-being, including experiences of social engagement, usually with other people, because we usually don't necessarily consciously socially self-engage with ourselves. Just traditionally speaking, when we have a desire for social engagement, it's typically we go externally and we go talk to someone or spend time with someone or go to a group event or something. Okay, and so information is being gathered from every year of life and is organized in relation with all these subconscious priorities. So there's two things that we're playing here with. Information from every year and information in all these different roles. So all the different roles has information from each year of life, okay? And how that stuff is connected through each year of life and through each role of each year of life that data has been gathered. The content, the specific abstract information, the connectivity, how those pieces of information are communicating, connecting, and collaborating with each other. That's what kind of forms this information of the body mind, right? Okay, so let's imagine that there's been some moments of unfulfilled attachment needs. And it could be minor, or it could be major, or it could be a compilation of the both, okay? But, when it can be something small, like if you're a young child and you get lost in a store for even like 10 minutes or something and you can't find, the people that you're with, then that's a moment of unfulfilled attachment needs. And that's stored in the body mind and can secretly affect navigation or regulation. It's an unprocessed experience, basically. If you did something that you're like super proud of, especially when you're a younger age, you did something you're like super, super proud of, and then you share it with somebody who you respect and they don't return that experience with like unconditional love, then that's a moment of unfulfilled attachment needs. So it can be really like seemingly small. And the younger you are, the greater impact the smaller experiences have. When something like that happens later in life, it's not necessarily as intense when it's being processed through the body mind. Okay, so let's imagine that a body mind has data from childhood, and when that information navigates life in present day as an adult, when that data is navigating, then there might be sensations of feeling small or inferior or insecure, or like you don't have an equal space in the world around you, or something of that modality. Is just one of infinite examples. And then let's say that there's information gathered later in life, and it was during, different unpleasant experiences. Maybe it was an intense relational encounter, or an intense something that was unpleasant and unfulfilled attachment needs in some manner of speaking. And when that information is activated, you just feel really alone or really angry or really something unpleasant. And maybe you don't have as much conscious power in the decisions that you make in everyday moments, okay? So there's all these different years of information in the body mind. They're not organized like that because the body mind doesn't understand time. The body mind doesn't understand time at all. It just has information, but that's a way to describe it, to make sense of it. Every year has gathered information that's fluidly flowing throughout each other. But is that information connected? And a lot of times it's not. It's pretty common for information from, ages 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 to not be fully connected with ages, 19, 20, 21, to not be fully connected with recent data now, just because there's so much of life that's happening and there's so frequently moments of unfulfilled attachment needs to some degree. And even if it's one need being unfulfilled in a small degree for a brief moment, it still impacts the body mind. And of course, the impact is greater if it's all of the attachment needs not being fulfilled for a longer period of time that's more intense. And so all of that can affect the content and connectivity of the body mind that affects navigation and regulation. Okay? And so then you go through everyday moments, and there's different types of navigation and regulation that seem to disrupt reality or distort reality or reduce reality. And then you have moments where, there's thoughts that are not pleasant, or emotions that are not pleasant, or action patterns that are maybe not necessarily in your absolute best interest. And it can be so normal that there might not even be an awareness that there could be a different style of navigation or regulation, especially if it's been happening for many, many years, decades, or even your entire life. But when navigation and regulation is optimally functioning, every moment looks and feels like unconditional love. When navigation and regulation is operating to its optimal capacity, every moment looks and feels like unconditional love. And anything less than that is a clue that there's something in the body-mind that needs unconditional love. And so there's these hundreds of trillions of energetic pathways, right? Hundreds of trillions. It's like a really large number. And if any piece of those hundreds of trillions isn't fully connected, or any piece of those hundreds of trillions has content of less than love, then there can be disruption of navigation and regulation that can reduce the quality of the experience for consciousness in the human form. How can we shift the content and connectivity? Well, first, it's important to know that looking back at past experiences to heal unfulfilled attachment needs that have already occurred is not the answer, because there are no past experiences according to the body-mind. There's only presently existing data. And so the way that we shift this is not looking back at the experiences that weren't so good, and it's not looking forward at what we're trying to make the body-mind become. Right? If we have like a certain style of navigation we want it to have, and we're like, but I just want to be at this place, right? Instead, the process is turning inwards to fulfill present moment attachment needs. And in that process, you're going straight to the foundation of the body-mind. Straight to the foundation. If you're working with memories, you're working at surface stuff. But if you go straight to the foundation, then everything that's been built on the foundation automatically shifts in a positive and powerful, profound way. Okay? If you go straight to the foundation of the body-mind, right, then everything that's been built on top of it ever will be reconstructed indirectly. Right? So if you have like a house and there's like shakiness in the house or something, and you're like, okay, I'm going to fix these walls, but the problem is actually in the foundation itself, then fixing the walls will not actually resolve what's causing the unstableness or whatever of that house. And so it's the same thing with the body-mind. If there are these clues of disruption of navigation or regulation, you can't be like, oh, let me shift these thought forms, or like, oh, let me respond to these feelings, or, oh, let me change the past experiences that have created memory data. That's still working on a surface level and will not create the life-changing, lifelong transformation that is so deeply desired and deserved. Instead, we can go straight to the foundation of the body-mind, straight to attachment needs in the present moment, because there's only the present moment. The past and the future exist as vibrational potentials through body-mind navigation, access through the infinite power of consciousness. The past and the future both only exist as vibrational potentials of the body-mind. And the automations will gather information from the past and project them into the future. But as consciousness expands its power, it can recognize that there's only present moment energy and can shift it independent of anything that's ever happened and anything that is automatically projected of potentially happening. And that's where we start to experience some really profound loving liberation. And it can really, really, really create some incredible moments, like laughing until you cry with joy and gratitude, just because. So there's all this different data. And when any of it has content of less than love or connectivity that's not fully united, then there can be unique styles of navigation or regulation. And so instead of changing past experiences, instead of looking at memory data, and instead of trying to shift to the future of what we wish our body mind to be, we can actually just turn inward and tend to present moment attachment needs. And that process and that practice reconstructs the body mind, because attachment development is what sculpted the body mind to begin with. And so all the different regulation of prefrontal cortex, brain hemisphere connectivity, the brainstem, even balance and coordination can be positively effective. Unity of the brainstem, the coordination of sensory processing, heart rate variability, respiration, digestive, everything, literally everything, all the regulation was originally developed. The regulation and the protocols that govern that regulation originally developed in relation with attachment well-being and attachment development. And all the navigation comes from memories, mostly unconscious memories, mostly implicit emotional and procedural memories. And so when you teach the body mind to tend to present moment attachment needs, you're creating new action patterns of loving presence and new emotional procedures of loving presence. And when there's loving presence, then there's nothing from the past, there's nothing from the future, and there's nothing that's less than love. And the navigation can shift in a positive and powerful way. And so when we turn inward to present moment attachment needs, we resculpt the implicit memories at the foundation of navigation and regulation. We shapeshift the foundation of the actual entire body mind, and we indirectly impact hundreds of trillions of energetic pathways affecting every moment of personal reality. And we don't have to look at all the complexities of the hundreds of trillions of pathways to do that. We don't have to look at decades where every nanosecond has affected this wiring. We don't have to look at any issues that might be coming up in disruption, because if you look at the problem, you just feed the problem. When you look at the solution, the problem resolves itself. And the solution is tending to present moment attachment needs. And so all these just really amazing things start to happen. And tending to present moment attachment needs can happen in infinite ways. There's, you can just practice self-love, but there's deeper and more profound ways to tend to present moment attachment needs. And that's where social self-engagement practices come in. And social self-engagement practices have an infinite potential. Marathons, hi! Marathons are the most powerful and intimate and direct. You're really getting in there. But there's also literally hundreds of social self-engagement practices where you don't need mirrors, and they can actually be integrated into everyday life, like when you're unloading a dishwasher or taking a shower or going for a walk. And when you start to practice social self-engagement through 5 distinct steps: loving presence, distinction and connection between self aspects, self-attunement, developing attachments between distinct parts of the self, and creating a felt sense of attachment need fulfillment or attachment well-being between those parts of the self from within. Those 5 steps of social self-engagement, when cultivated on a regular basis, have the power to shapeshift hundreds of trillions of energetic pathways without looking directly at them. And so everything from early childhood experiences to unpleasant pains, maybe during adulthood, anything in between and beyond, can be remolded without looking directly at it. And the best part of this is that parts of the self experience healing homecomings. The best part of this is that parts of the self get to come home to each other in a present moment. So imagine that there's, a childhood self aspect. Pick any age, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. Childhood self aspect, 1 or maybe like hundreds or thousands of childhood self aspects. And they are not oriented with the self that exists today. They never got to meet the adult they grew up to be and the adult who's here now to care for them. And now they get to. And imagine that there's parts of the self who went through incredibly awful experiences. Whether that's childhood, teenagehood, or adulthood, doesn't matter. But imagine that there's parts of the self who went through some severe, unpleasant experiences at some point. And they never got to feel the completion that those experiences are over. They're no longer happening, and they're not going to happen again. And they're free from that, and they're in a brand new present moment that hasn't happened, where there's limitless possibility. And those parts of the self get to then come home and be in a new moment. And that can happen without looking at those memories without looking at the details of that wiring. And that is an incredibly profound thing to experience. And those healing homecomings. And so it feels like you're becoming more whole, but it's not because there wasn't already wholeness there. It's because there wasn't a conscious revelation of the wholeness that already existed within. And so there's been all these parts of the self and all these different encounters of reality throughout all of these periods of life. And that's created information in the body-mind. And any moments of less than love or any pieces that aren't fully connected with each other won't be able to help these parts of the self know that there is this wholeness from within. And so this process not only reconstructs the body-mind and shapeshifts navigation regulation by rewriting hundreds of trillions of pathways without looking directly at them, but by going deeper and just working straight with the foundation of attachment well-being and attachment needs. But it also creates this profound miracle where literally trillions, hundreds of trillions of distinct parts of the self, hundreds of trillions of distinct parts of the self from all these moments of life get to come home to each other in a way that they never have before. And that creates a greater sense of wholeness and well-being from within. And that expands the quality of personal experience from the inside out. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being you. Implicit Revelations, case study notes. If you're curious to explore more about social self-engagement practices, including marathons, you can dive deep into some of my web pages. And I also have a lot of other amazing content about implicit memories and navigation and healing attachments and all kinds of amazing stuff, free content, and also deeper dive offerings of programs and courses and videos and services and all kinds of amazing stuff. So if this topic interests you, definitely explore some of that to find out a little bit more about this and social self-engagement and healing attachments. It creates a sense of loving liberation that is beyond words. And the power of that has so much potential that there is nothing it can't do. There is nothing that it can't do. It has so much power that there is no obstacle it cannot overcome. It has so much power that there is no region of brain-body wiring that it can't transform. It has so much power that there is no painful past experience that can stand in the way of the loving liberation that this creates. It has so much power. It is indescribable. It is genuinely indescribable what happens when this is truly applied. So I'm just honored to share it and grateful to be here. Implicit Revelations, case study notes. That's all. Bye-bye.